Take a slow breath. You're safe here. This is a story from Moonlight Japanese Sleep Stories. The night train moving without hurry. Prologue: the train that refused speed. The night train moved without hurry. It was not delayed. It was not early. It simply chose a pace that did not belong to clocks. Through the darkness of the Japanese countryside, the train glided as if the rails themselves were half asleep. Inside the windows, dim lights floated like small moons, steady and unconcerned with the outside world. Rain traced thin, patient lines across the glass. Drops met, separated, disappeared, never rushing, never lingering. Inside the cars, warmth gathered softly. Most seats were empty. A few passengers slept, their breathing uneven but calm, while others remained awake, staring into nothing, allowing the gentle motion to loosen their thoughts. This train did not announce urgency. It did not insist on destinations. It accepted every passenger exactly as they were: tired, restless, silent. Some trains exist to carry people somewhere important. This one existed to let them drift. Outside, mountains passed like memories no longer demanding attention. Small stations appeared briefly, one light, one sign, then vanished again into the dark, as if they had never intended to be remembered. The night train moved without hurry, and those inside it began, slowly, to forget the shape of urgency itself. Chapter 1: A seat by the window. He sat by the window in car 3. His name was unimportant tonight. Names belonged to daylight, to offices, documents, and voices calling across rooms. Here, in the low sway of the night train, he was simply another presence resting on the rails. The seat beneath him was worn but clean. It carried the faint scent of detergent layered over something older: metal, dust, years of quiet travel. He watched his reflection in the glass. It appeared when the lights inside were strong, and disappeared when darkness outside pressed closer. He had boarded at a station that never fully slept. The attendant at the gate had bowed without meeting his eyes and spoken gently. "Please take care." The words returned to him now, though no one had spoken since. The train hummed a low, continuous sound. Not loud enough to demand attention. Not soft enough to vanish. It was the kind of sound the body trusted without question. Across the aisle, an elderly man slept with his mouth slightly open, hands folded carefully in his lap. Farther down the car, a young woman leaned her forehead against the window, earphones in place, eyes closed, neither asleep nor awake. Footsteps passed quietly. The conductor moved with the careful respect of someone who understood that night was fragile. The next station was announced. but the words dissolved into the rhythm of the rails before they reached him. He closed his eyes. At first, thoughts arrived quickly. Fragments of unfinished conversations, rooms left behind with lights still burning. A phone is vibrating on a table, unanswered. But the train did not respond to thoughts. It did not speed up when his mind raced. It did not slow down when he tried to hold on to something. Gradually, the thoughts softened. He opened his eyes again when the sound of rain changed. The tapping against the roof grew lighter, more scattered. Outside, darkness lifted just enough to reveal flooded fields reflecting the faint sky. A small station approached. One platform. No vending machines. No announcements. Only a bench and a sign whose paint had begun to peel. The train slowed with quiet obedience. No one boarded. No one left. Still, the doors opened. Cold air entered the car, carrying the scent of wet soil and leaves. For a brief moment, inside and outside touched, then separated again. The doors closed. The train continued. He wondered only briefly who lived near that station. What their nights were like. Whether someone waited there for a train that rarely stayed long enough to matter. The thought dissolved before it could become a question. Further down the car, two voices murmured. "Are you still awake?" "Yes, but I'll sleep soon." The words were quiet, almost apologetic, as if speaking itself required permission from the night. He did not turn to look. The voices passed him like steam and vanished. This was how the night train worked. Nothing remained long enough to ask for meaning. The train entered a tunnel. The windows turned into mirrors. His face became clearer, older than he remembered, gentler than he expected. The lines around his eyes were not from smiling, but from watching. He had not planned to think about the past tonight. But plans mattered very little here. Lights in the tunnel flashed rhythmically, creating movement inside stillness. He breathed in. He breathed out. With each breath, something loosened its grip. When the train emerged, the rain had stopped completely. Stars appeared between drifting clouds, hesitant but present. The countryside seemed to rest. Not asleep, but listening. The night train moved without hurry. And in car 3, by the window, a man who no longer needed a name allowed himself to be carried not toward a destination, but deeper into the quiet place where sleep begins. Chapter 2: The Station with No Clocks. The station appeared without warning. There was no gradual approach, no distant lights announcing its presence. One moment, the train was moving through darkness, the next, it was slowing beside a narrow platform illuminated by a single pale lamp. No clocks were visible. Not on the platform. Not inside the small waiting shelter. Not above the silent ticket gate. Time, here, seemed to exist only as a suggestion. The train came to a gentle stop. The doors opened. Cool night air slipped inside, quieter than the rain had been, carrying the scent of damp wood and something faintly mineral. Like stone after a long day of silence. A woman stepped onto the platform. She moved carefully, as if unsure whether the ground would remain solid beneath her feet. Her coat was thin, unsuitable for the season, and she held a small bag close to her chest. No one watched her leave, except the night itself. The doors closed again. The train did not hurry to depart. It waited just long enough for the station to breathe. Then, with a soft shudder, it moved on. Inside car 3, the man by the window remained still. He had noticed the woman only in passing, a brief impression rather than a clear image. In this train, people did not fully arrive in each other's awareness. They passed like thoughts half-formed. Yet something about the station lingered. He looked back through the glass as the platform receded. The single lamp grew smaller, then vanished entirely. Still, no clock appeared. The train resumed its steady rhythm. Metal against metal. A quiet hum beneath the floor. A sound that suggested progress without urgency. Across from him, the elderly man stirred. His eyes opened briefly, unfocused, then closed again as if waking had been a mistake. Further down the car, the young woman removed one earphone and glanced at her phone. The screen lit her face for a moment, then dimmed as she locked it and slipped the device back into her pocket. No notifications, no alarms, nothing demanding a response. This train allowed such things. The man leaned his head slightly against the window. The glass was cool, grounding. Outside, the landscape had changed. Forests pressed closer to the tracks, their outlines dense and unbroken. Occasionally, a narrow road appeared, empty and shining faintly under the moon. He thought of stations without clocks. Places where time was measured differently by footsteps, by the sound of trains passing through rather than stopping, by the slow accumulation of nights. He wondered how long the woman would remain at that station. Whether someone waited for her. Whether she waited for something else entirely. The train offered no answers. An announcement sounded softly, barely louder than a breath. The next stop will be. The rest dissolved again into motion. The conductor passed once more, eyes lowered, steps unhurried. There was no sense of enforcement in his presence, only quiet guardianship. As if his role was not to control the journey, but to protect its gentleness. The man's thoughts began to blur. Images lost their edges. Memories loosened their hold. He no longer remembered exactly why he had boarded this train. Only that it had felt necessary at the time. Like sitting down after standing too long. Like closing one's eyes without planning to sleep. The train rocked slightly as it curved through the darkness. Not enough to wake anyone. Just enough to remind the body that it was moving. Somewhere far ahead, another station waited. Perhaps it had clocks. Perhaps it did not. The night train would arrive either way. Without hurry. Without insistence. And inside car 3, among strangers who would never fully know one another, the boundary between waking and sleeping grew thin, almost transparent. The train continued onward, carrying its quiet passengers through a Japan that existed only at night, where time softened, and nothing asked to be held. Chapter 3: The Woman Who Left the Train. She stood alone on the platform. The sound of the train had already faded, absorbed by the trees and the distance, leaving behind a silence that felt deliberate, almost careful. The single lamp above her cast a weak circle of light, just enough to confirm that the station was real. No clocks watched her. No voices asked where she was going. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder and exhaled slowly, as if she had been holding her breath since before the train stopped. The station was smaller than she remembered. Or perhaps it had always been this size, and memory had simply expanded it over time. A narrow path led away from the platform, disappearing into darkness. No signs were pointing anywhere. Only the suggestion that walking forward was possible. She did not hurry. Hurrying belonged to trains, to connections, to places where time had edges. Here, there was nothing to miss. She began to walk. Gravel shifted softly beneath her shoes. Each step made a sound that felt too loud at first, until the night accepted it. Beyond the station, the air smelled of wet leaves and earth. Somewhere nearby, water moved, perhaps a stream, perhaps just rain collected in places that refused to dry. She passed a small wooden shelter. Inside, a bench sat unused, its surface worn smooth by years of waiting. She ran her fingers lightly along the wood, then pulled her hand back, as if touching the past too directly might wake it. She had not planned to come here. The decision had been made quietly, somewhere between one station and the next. A moment when the train slowed, and she realized she could stand, could step forward, could leave without explanation. No one had asked her to stay. No one had asked her to go. The path widened into a road. It curved gently, following the shape of the land rather than cutting through it. On either side, houses slept behind dark windows. No lights flickered on. No dogs barked. This place knew how to keep secrets. She walked until the station lamp was no longer visible, until even the idea of the train felt distant. Only then did she stop. She stood beneath the open sky and looked up. Clouds moved slowly, revealing and hiding the stars without pattern. She tried to name the constellations, but the names slipped away, unnecessary. Names were not required here. She thought of the train, of the warmth inside the car, of the low hum beneath the floor, of the strangers who would continue without her. For a moment, she imagined the man by the window in car 3, though she had never truly seen him. She imagined him still seated, still watching reflections pass across the glass. She wondered if he would remember her. The answer came easily. He would not. And that was all right. She turned back toward the road. Far ahead, a faint light glowed yellow, steady, unmoving. A house, perhaps. Or a small inn that did not advertise itself. She resumed walking. Her steps were slower now, heavier with the quiet weight of having arrived somewhere that did not demand arrival. Behind her, far beyond the trees and the curves of the land, the night train continued its journey. It did not pause for her absence. It did not mark her departure. It moved without hurry, carrying with it the warmth, the hum, the gentle forgetting. And in its absence, the woman found that the night was wide enough to hold her on its own. Chapter 4, Car 3, After Midnight. After midnight, the train felt different. Not because anything had changed, but because the idea of change had grown distant. The lights inside the cars dimmed slightly, or perhaps the passengers' eyes had simply adjusted to the dark. Time no longer announced itself. No clear moments marked its passage, no meals, no conversations, no sense of before or after. Only the continuous motion, steady and unhurried. In car 3, most passengers were asleep. The elderly man's breathing had settled into a slow, even rhythm. His head leaned gently against the seat back, as if supported by an unseen hand. The young woman with the earphones now slept fully, her head tilted to one side, the wire trailing like a thin line, connecting her to something she no longer heard. The man by the window remained awake. Or perhaps he was resting in a space just before sleep, where thoughts softened, and the body forgot its weight. He watched the darkness outside without trying to see anything in particular. The train passed through a stretch of open land. Fields extended on both sides, their shapes barely visible, outlined only by the faint reflection of stars. Occasional poles marked the rhythm of distance, appearing briefly, then vanishing. He counted them once, then stopped. Counting required effort. Effort belonged to another time. He let his gaze drift. Reflections on the glass layered themselves over the night, his own face, the dim lights inside the car, the ghost of movement where nothing existed. At some point, the reflections became more real than the landscape. A subtle shift in the train's motion drew his attention. The rails curved, gently but persistently. The car leaned almost imperceptibly, like a person adjusting their posture in sleep. The sound changed with it. A lower note entered the hum, deeper, more resonant. Not alarming, reassuring. The train knew where it was going, even if its passengers did not. He felt a thought surface, slow and unurgent. It was about the woman who had left the train. Not an image, exactly. More a sense of absence, a space where something had been, now empty. He wondered if she was asleep by now. He wondered if she was listening to the quiet in the same way he was. The thought did not demand an answer. The conductor passed once more. This time, he paused briefly near car 3, resting a hand on the back of a seat. His gaze moved slowly across the passengers, not counting, not checking, simply acknowledging. For a moment, his eyes met the man's. No words were exchanged. The conductor nodded slightly, a gesture so small it could have been imagined, then continued. The man leaned back and closed his eyes. The darkness behind his eyelids was softer than the one outside. Images drifted through his mind, stations without clocks, roads without signs, windows reflecting nothing at all. They did not connect. They did not ask to be understood. His breathing slowed. The hum of the train wrapped around him, steady and familiar. Outside, somewhere far beyond the fields, a river followed its own path, indifferent to rails and schedules. The train crossed it without ceremony. No announcement marked the moment. Inside car 3, no one noticed. And that was as it should be. The night deepened. The train continued. And in the quiet space after midnight, where time loosened its hold, the boundary between movement and rest dissolved, leaving only the gentle certainty that everything was, for now, exactly where it needed to be. Chapter 5: The sound of rain returning. The rain returned without announcement. At first, it was barely audible, a faint tapping that blended with the hum of the train. It took time before anyone might have noticed it as something separate, something new. Drop by drop, the sound gathered. Not heavy, not urgent, just present. Rain met metal, then glass, then the quiet patience of the roof. Each sound layered itself gently over the last, forming a rhythm that did not repeat exactly, yet never felt unfamiliar. Inside the train, nothing changed. And yet, everything softened. The man by the window opened his eyes. For a moment, he did not remember where he was. Not because he was lost, but because location had become unnecessary. The seat held him. The motion carried him. That was enough. The rain traced slow paths down the glass beside his face. Some lines met and merged, others broke apart and vanished midway, leaving no trace of where they had been. He followed one drop with his eyes until it disappeared at the edge of the window. Then another. Then none at all. Across the car, someone shifted in their sleep. A hand moved. A shoulder relaxed. No one woke. Rain had a way of granting permission to sleep more deeply, to let go more completely. The train accepted the rain without resistance. Its speed did not change. Its path remained steady. There was no struggle between movement and weather here. The landscape outside dissolved further. Fields became reflections. Trees became shadows. Distance lost its meaning. The rain erased edges, smoothing everything it touched. Even the darkness seemed less certain, as if it, too, were being rewritten drop by drop. The man felt his thoughts respond in the same way. Memories lost their sharpness. Concerns loosened their grip. He remembered a room with a window like this one. Rain against glass. A light was left on, though no one needed it. The memory did not come with a face or a time. Only a feeling quiet, contained, unfinished. He did not try to hold it. An announcement sounded softer than before. Due to weather conditions, the rest faded into the rain. Whatever was said did not require understanding. The train continued as it always had, without hurry, without explanation. Further down the car, the young woman stirred briefly. Her eyes opened just long enough to notice the rain, the dim lights, the absence of urgency. Then they closed again. She smiled faintly, as if recognizing something she had known once, long ago. The man's breathing slowed further. The sound of rain blended with the hum beneath the floor until the two became indistinguishable. Movement and stillness folded into one another. He felt himself drifting not away, but inward. There was no clear moment when waking ended, and sleep began. Only the sense of being carried, gently and endlessly, through a night that asked nothing in return. Outside, rain continued to fall across Japan. On roofs. On roads, on stations without clocks, and on a train moving steadily through it all, holding its passengers in a quiet agreement with the night. The night train moved without hurry. And for now, neither did sleep. Chapter 6: A town seen only in passing. The town appeared as a collection of lights. Not bright enough to draw attention, not dim enough to disappear. Just enough to suggest lives continuing quietly beyond the reach of the train. The rain softened everything. Streetlights blurred into halos. Windows glowed like distant thoughts. Roads reflected the sky, doubling what little light there was. The train did not slow. It passed the town as one passes a thought that feels familiar but unnecessary to follow. Inside car 3, no one stirred. The man by the window remained suspended between sleep and awareness. His eyes were half open now, unfocused, reflecting the passing lights without truly seeing them. He noticed the town not as a place, but as a change in color. Warm yellows, occasional white. A brief rhythm different from the dark fields and forests before. The lights slid across the glass, over his reflection, then vanished behind him. Gone before they could become memory. He wondered, dimly, what it would be like to live in a place seen only in passing. To exist as a blur to strangers moving through the night. To be part of someone else's quiet without ever being known. The thought felt neither sad nor comforting. It simply was. The train crossed a bridge. Below, a river carried the rain away, gathering it from countless small places and moving it onward without hesitation. The sound changed briefly, the hollow echo of metal over open space, then returned to its steady hum. No announcement marked the crossing. No one marked the moment. In the town, unseen from the train, someone turned off a light. Another person woke briefly, listened to the rain, and fell back asleep. A clock ticked somewhere, unnoticed. The man's eyes closed fully now. The town faded from his awareness before it could settle. It left no image behind, no sense of loss. Only a gentle impression, like warmth lingering after a cup has been set down. The train continued through the rain. Through towns without names. Through nights without edges. As the last lights disappeared, darkness returned, not empty, but full. Full of motion, full of quiet agreements between steel and rain and sleep. Car 3 swayed gently, holding its passengers as if it had always known them. The night train moved without hurry. And the town, already behind them, continued its own quiet existence, unseen, uninterrupted, complete. Chapter 7: Dreams that do not belong to anyone. At some point, the dreams began. Not suddenly. Not clearly. They arrived the way fog does, without crossing a boundary, without announcing itself as something separate from the air. In Car 3, sleep had settled fully now. The elderly man dreamed of a shoreline he had not visited in decades. The water was calm, the sky indistinct. He did not remember why he was there, only that he was not required to leave. The young woman dreamed of a song without words. It repeated itself gently, never reaching a chorus, never ending. The man by the window dreamed as well, though the dream did not feel like his own. In the dream, a train moved through a landscape that did not exist on any map. There were stations, but no names. There were signs, but no writing. There were people, but no faces. The train moved without hurry. It always moved without hurry. The windows showed scenes that shifted too slowly to notice change. A forest where the trees stood closer together than was possible. A city made of low buildings and soft light, where no one looked up. A coastline with no water, only the suggestion that water might return someday. None of these places asked to be remembered. They passed, one after another, leaving behind no sense of distance traveled. In the dream, the man was not seated. He was not standing either. He existed somewhere between positions, held in place by the movement itself. He felt no need to look for meaning. Meaning belonged to waking hours, to sharp edges and decisions. Here, there was only continuation. The sound of the train carried through the dream. Not loud, not insistent. A rhythm that connected everything: the rails, the passing landscape, the breathing of sleepers. It was impossible to tell whether the sound created the dream, or the dream created the sound. At one of the nameless stations, the woman appeared. Not as she had been on the platform, but as a quieter version of herself. Lighter, less defined. She stood near the doors, holding nothing, waiting for nothing. The man sensed her presence without turning. In this place, turning was unnecessary. She stepped off the train. Or perhaps she simply faded. The train continued. The dream shifted again. Now there was only darkness beyond the windows, but it was not empty. It moved with the train, matching its pace, refusing to rush ahead or fall behind. The darkness felt familiar, comforting, like a place that had always existed, waiting patiently to be noticed. Inside the dream, no one slept. No one woke. There was no distinction. The train carried everything together: thoughts, memories, places, absences, without sorting, without judgment. It did not ask what belonged to whom. In car 3, the man's breathing remained slow and even. A faint reflection of a smile appeared and disappeared on his face, without reason. Outside, the rain eased, then returned, then eased again. Inside the dream, the train moved on. Some dreams insist on being remembered. This one did not. It asked only to be experienced, then released. And as the night continued to deepen, The dreams that did not belong to anyone drifted gently through the cars shared, unclaimed, and free to fade with the coming of morning. Chapter 8. Before the first morning announcement. Before morning announced itself, there was a pause. Not a pause in movement, the train never stopped, but a pause in the quality of the night. The darkness grew thinner, less certain, as if it were preparing to step aside without making a sound. Inside the train, the air felt different. Cooler, lighter, as though the night had exhaled. In car 3, sleep loosened its hold. Not all at once. Not completely. The elderly man shifted, adjusting his posture without waking. His hand moved slightly, then settled again, as if completing a habit learned long ago. The young woman's brow tightened briefly. Her dream, whatever shape it had taken, began to dissolve, leaving behind only a sense of calm she would not remember upon waking. The man by the window opened his eyes. For a moment, he did not know whether he had been asleep. There was no clear break. No sharp edge separates one state from the other. Only the awareness that his eyes were open now, and the world was present again. Outside, the darkness had softened into a deep blue. The rain had stopped sometime during the night. The glass beside him was marked with faint, dried paths where water had been, but the drops themselves were gone. He traced one line with his gaze, then let it go. The landscape began to reveal itself. Fields emerged first, still and pale. Then low hills, their outlines gentle rather than sharp. Occasionally, a building appeared silent, closed, waiting. Nothing moved. It felt as though the world itself were resting between breaths. The train maintained its steady pace. No announcement broke the quiet. No artificial brightness filled the cars. Morning had not yet been invited inside. The conductor had not returned. This time belonged to no one. The man noticed a faint reflection of himself in the window again. He looked unchanged, and yet, something felt different, not in his face, but behind it. As if a weight he had not known he was carrying had been set down quietly during the night. He did not try to identify it. Identification would come later, if it came at all. Somewhere ahead, the first station of the morning waited. With clocks. With schedules. With people who would speak clearly and move with intention. But that station was not here yet. For now, there was only the space before it. The train passed through a shallow cutting, rock walls rising briefly on either side. The sound shifted, then returned to normal, marking the passage of another unnoticed moment. Light increased slowly. Not enough to wake the sleepers. Just enough to suggest that waking was possible. The man rested his head back against the seat. He did not close his eyes. He did not need to. This moment balanced between night and morning, between sleep and intention, asked nothing of him. The train carried him forward. Without hurry. Without insistence. And before the first morning announcement could shape the day, the night offered its final gift, a quiet that did not need to last, and therefore felt complete. Chapter 9: The First Platform of Morning. The first platform of the morning appeared slowly. It was not announced by brightness, but by color. The blue outside the windows lightened into something softer, something closer to gray, then pale gold. Shadows shortened without disappearing. The train began to slow. Not suddenly, not decisively, just enough for the body to notice. Inside the cars, the quiet shifted. Sleep loosened its final threads. The elderly man opened his eyes and blinked once, then again. He looked around as if checking for something he might have misplaced, then relaxed when he found nothing missing. The young woman sat up slightly, pushed her hair back behind her ear, and looked at the window with mild curiosity, as if seeing it for the first time. The man by the window remained still. He watched the platform approach. This station had clocks. They hung above the platform, round and clear, their hands moving with confidence. Time had returned here, unapologetic and precise. A small group of commuters waited in neat lines. Some held bags. Other cups of coffee steamed faintly in the cool air. No one looked tired. Or perhaps tiredness had already been accepted as part of the day. The train stopped. The doors opened. Morning entered. Cool air flowed in, sharper than the night air had been, carrying the smell of concrete, paper, and something faintly sweet from a nearby bakery not yet open. Footsteps echoed on the platform. Voices appeared clear, purposeful, fully formed. "Good morning. Did you sleep? I'll be late tonight." The words moved quickly, efficiently, and unburdened by the night that had carried them here. Some passengers stood. Bags were lifted. Coats were adjusted. Phones were checked. The elderly man rose carefully, nodded once to no one in particular, and stepped toward the door. The young woman followed, pausing briefly to look back down the car, as if checking that something had been left behind on purpose. Then she, too, stepped onto the platform. The man by the window did not move. Not yet. He watched the flow of people until it thinned, until only a few remained seated, those continuing onward. Those with no immediate destination, those not yet ready to rejoin time. An announcement sounded, clear and complete this time. "The doors will now close." The doors closed. The train exhaled. Then it began to move again. The platform slid away. Clocks receded. Voices faded. Morning stayed behind, waiting for the next train. Inside car 3, the light was different now. More honest. Less forgiving. But the quiet remained. The man shifted in his seat for the first time in hours. He felt rested, though he could not say why. He felt lighter, though nothing tangible had been removed. He touched the window with his fingertips. The glass was warmer now. Outside, the countryside continued, fields, houses, roads fully visible, fully present. Nothing mysterious remained, and yet, something lingered. The night train no longer belonged to the night alone. But it still moved without hurry. It carried forward what could not be measured by clocks. What did not announce itself. What had been loosened, softened, allowed to pass. The man looked ahead. The day would arrive in its own way. There was no need to rush to meet it. Chapter 10: What Remains After Arrival. The train continued into the morning. The light outside grew steadier, more confident, settling into the shapes of ordinary things. Fields became fields again. Roads returned to their purposes. The night, having done its work, withdrew without asking to be thanked. Inside the train, the atmosphere shifted fully. Bags rested at passengers' feet. Jackets were folded. Screens lit up, briefly illuminating faces with information and intention. Yet something from the night remained. Not visible, not nameable, but present. The man by the window felt it as he sat quietly, watching the countryside pass. He tried, once, to think of the journey as something finished. The thought did not fit. The night had not been a chapter to close, but a movement to absorb, like breathing, like listening. He remembered fragments. A station without clocks. Rain tracing paths that led nowhere. A town seen only in passing. They did not arrange themselves into a story. They did not need to. They existed as impressions, as textures rather than images. The train slowed again. This time, the deceleration felt more decisive. Ahead, buildings grew denser. Wires crossed the sky. Signs appeared clear, readable, insistent. This was a place where people arrived. An announcement sounded. The name of the station was spoken clearly, followed by instructions, followed by gratitude. The man listened without reacting. Around him, passengers stood with purpose. Some checked mirrors in their phones. Others stretched, shook off the stiffness of sleep. A few exchanged quiet words. "I'll text you later. Did you bring the documents? I forgot my umbrella." The night was no longer part of the conversation. The train came to a stop. The doors opened. Arrival happened. The man stood slowly. He felt the weight of his bag settle onto his shoulder, familiar and manageable. The floor beneath his feet felt solid, reliable. He stepped onto the platform. The station was larger than the others. Multiple tracks, multiple exits, multiple directions calling softly but persistently. People moved around him, flowing toward their destinations, absorbed in the forward pull of the day. He paused, just for a moment. The train behind him hummed quietly. Its doors closed again. Soon, it would depart, continuing on its route, carrying others through hours they would not fully remember. It did not wait to be watched. He walked toward the exit. With each step, the night loosened its final hold not as something lost, but as something completed. Outside the station, the air was brighter. Morning sounds layered themselves around him: traffic, footsteps, distant voices, the faint chime of a crossing signal. The world had resumed its usual rhythm. And yet, as he stepped into it, he noticed what remained. A gentleness in his pace. A patience in his breathing. A sense that not every silence needed to be filled. The night train had not given him answers. It had given him space. He merged into the flow of people. No one noticed anything different about him. And that, too, felt right. Behind him, unseen now, the train moved on. Still without hurry. Still carrying the quiet knowledge that even in motion, rest is possible, and that sometimes, what matters most is not where one arrives, but what one is allowed to release along the way. Chapter 11: The Train That Continues. The train did not consider the arrival an ending. It never did. After the doors closed and the platform slipped away, it returned to its steady rhythm, unchanged by the comings and goings it had allowed. Seats emptied, then filled again. Light shifted across its windows. The day moved forward, as days always do. But the train continued. Car 3 held fewer passengers now. A man in a dark coat sat where the elderly man had been. He stared at his phone without reading, scrolling without intention. Near the window, a child leaned against her mother's shoulder, already asleep again, as if the morning had asked too much too soon. The seats remembered nothing. They offered the same quiet support to each new weight, each new presence. Outside, the landscape changed. Mountains gave way to flatter land. Fields narrowed, then disappeared. Buildings rose, then thinned again. The train accepted all of it equally. It did not belong to any one place. Somewhere far behind, the woman who had left the train reached the light she had seen in the distance. Perhaps she knocked. Perhaps she let herself in. Perhaps she simply stopped walking and listened to the morning arrive. The train did not know. And it did not need to. The rain was gone now. Tracks shone faintly in the daylight, clean and ordinary. The rails carried no trace of the night's quiet agreements, no sign of the sleep they had supported. Yet the movement remained the same. Steady, reliable, without hurry. The conductor made his way through the cars once more. His steps were measured, his presence unobtrusive. He glanced at seats, at windows, at the gentle disorder of travel. Everything was as it should be. He paused briefly near car 3, resting his hand against the familiar frame of the door. Then he moved on. The train passed another station. Doors opened. Doors closed. Voices entered and left. Time resumed its clear shape. But somewhere beneath it, quieter and more persistent, the rhythm of the night remained. The train had carried many nights like this one. It would carry many more. Nights when urgency loosened. Nights when memories softened. Nights when people rested without knowing they needed to. It did not ask them to remember. As the train moved onward, it carried only what was light enough to remain breaths, pauses, the unspoken relief of having been held for a while. Everything else was left behind, exactly where it belonged. The night train moved without hurry. Even in daylight, even as the world demanded speed. It moved at the pace of continuation. And it continued. Epilogue: what the night leaves open. Night does not end. It recedes. It leaves behind a space quiet, unmarked, where something can begin without being named. The train knows this. It always has. And somewhere, tonight or another night, someone will step aboard, sit by the window, and feel the weight of the day loosen its grip. The train will accept them. Without question. Without hurry. And it will move on. Soft rain falling on old stone steps. Prologue: the sound that never hurries. The rain began before anyone noticed it. It did not announce itself with thunder, nor did it fall heavily enough to demand attention. It simply arrived, quietly, as though it had always been there and the world was only just now remembering to listen. In a small town tucked between low mountains and a slow-moving river, the rain slid from the sky in thin, patient lines. It brushed against tiled rooftops darkened by time, traced the edges of wooden eaves, and gathered briefly at their tips before letting go. Each drop fell without urgency, meeting the ground with a sound so soft it barely disturbed the air. There was a temple at the edge of this town. Its stone steps had been worn smooth by centuries of feet, pilgrims, monks, children, travelers who could not remember why they had climbed them, and locals who climbed them without thinking at all. The steps were uneven now, slightly bowed in places. each one holding a shallow memory of rainwater. As the rain fell, it collected on those steps, forming thin reflective skins that trembled with every new drop. The stone darkened, absorbing the water slowly, as if drinking. Nothing moved quickly here. The trees surrounding the temple stood still, their leaves accepting the rain without complaint. Moss clung to stone lanterns beside the steps, its green deepening under the moisture. Somewhere within the temple grounds, a wind chime stirred once, then fell silent again. Time did not stop, but it loosened its grip. The rain softened the edges of sound, blurred the boundary between one moment and the next. Footsteps that might have echoed instead dissolved. Thoughts that might have sharpened instead drifted. And if someone had been standing there at the foot of the old stone steps, watching the rain fall, they might have felt as though they were not arriving at the temple for the first time, but returning to a place they had never truly left. The rain continued. Chapter 1: The Town Where Even Hours Rest. The town was called Aoyama, though few people said its name aloud unless they had reason to. It appeared on maps in small print, almost as an afterthought, nestled between greener places that travelers preferred to visit. For those who lived there, Aoyama was not a destination. It was a place where things remained. Morning arrived gently in Aoyama. Not with alarms or sudden brightness, but with the gradual lightening of paper screens and the faint sound of rain still tapping against roofs. The rain had fallen through the night and showed no sign of leaving. At the edge of town stood a narrow wooden house facing a quiet road. The road was paved but rarely busy, its surface dark and glossy from the rain. Small puddles formed in shallow dips, reflecting power lines and fragments of sky. Inside the house, a kettle sat cooling on the stove. No one had rushed to turn it off. The water inside was still warm, releasing a thin breath of steam that disappeared almost immediately into the air. The house smelled faintly of tea leaves and old wood. A man named Haruto lived there. He had lived in that house for many years, long enough that the floorboards no longer creaked under his steps. Long enough that the house seemed to recognize his presence and respond with quiet acceptance. Haruto was neither young nor old in a way that mattered. His movements were unhurried, his posture relaxed, as though he had learned that standing too tensely served no purpose. That morning, he sat near the window, watching the rain. He did not count the drops or trace their paths. He simply allowed them to exist in his view. His breathing slowed to match the rhythm of the rainfall, a pattern so subtle it could not be measured. Outside, a cat crossed the road carefully, pausing at each puddle as if considering its depth. It shook one paw, then continued, tail low but calm. Haruto noticed, then let the moment pass. There was no schedule pressing on him. The hours in Aoyama had a habit of stretching, then folding in on themselves. Tasks waited patiently. Even memories seemed content to remain where they were, surfacing only when invited. Eventually, Haruto stood and reached for his coat. The fabric was worn but clean, soft from repeated use. He slipped it on, placed his feet into old shoes by the door, and stepped outside. The rain touched his face, immediately cool, light, familiar. He turned toward the temple path. The path began as gravel, then narrowed into packed earth, bordered by low stone walls. Small plants grew in the cracks between stones, their leaves heavy with water. As Haruto walked, the sound of his footsteps blended with the rain, becoming part of the background rather than something distinct. He passed no one. The town seemed to be resting, its inhabitants tucked away behind doors and screens, listening to the same rain from different angles. Somewhere, a radio played softly, its sound muffled and distant. When Haruto reached the base of the temple steps, he stopped. The steps rose gently before him, their surfaces shining with rain. Each step looked slightly different, shaped by time and weather rather than design. Water flowed down them in thin streams, catching light, then disappearing. Haruto did not climb immediately. He stood there, hands resting at his sides, breathing in the scent of wet stone and leaves. The rain cooled the air around him, settling on his shoulders and hair without soaking through. He felt no particular emotion that demanded a name. Only a sense of being exactly where he needed to be. After a moment, one that could have been long or short, he took a step forward. The stone was steady beneath his foot. And as he began to climb, the rain continued to fall, softly, endlessly, as it always had. Chapter 2, Where the Steps Remember the Rain. By the time Haruto reached the upper steps, the rain had changed its texture. It was still light, still patient, but the drops felt smaller somehow, as if they were taking their time to arrive. They touched stone and wood with the same gentleness, leaving behind a faint sheen that softened every surface. At the top of the steps stood the temple gate. Its wood was darkened by age, the grain visible beneath layers of weather and care. The roof curved slightly, sheltering the space beneath it without closing it off. Rainwater slid from its edges in slow, measured lines, falling into the gravel below. Haruto paused beneath the gate. The sound of the rain shifted here. It became quieter, filtered through wood and distance. Each drop seemed to arrive with intention, then fade. Beyond the gate, the temple grounds opened into a small courtyard. Stones were set carefully into the earth, forming paths that curved rather than ran straight. A few stone lanterns stood among low shrubs, their surfaces softened by moss and time. Nothing appeared new. Nothing appeared neglected. It was the kind of place that existed between attention and forgetting. Haruto walked slowly, his steps unmarked by urgency. He passed the main hall, its doors closed, and continued toward the side garden where an old wooden bench sat beneath a maple tree. The tree's leaves were thick with rain, bending slightly under the weight. Now and then, a drop fell from one leaf to another, then to the ground, completing a small journey without ceremony. Haruto sat on the bench. The wood was cool beneath him, but not uncomfortable. He rested his hands on his knees and allowed his shoulders to loosen. From where he sat, he could see part of the stone steps through the rain, their surfaces catching pale light. He had sat here many times before. Not always with intention. Sometimes he found himself here without remembering the walk up. Other times, he arrived knowing exactly why he had come, though the reason often felt unimportant once he was seated. The rain gave the world permission to Haruto's thoughts drifted not toward anything specific, but outward, like mist spreading across water. He remembered the first time he had come to the temple as a child, holding someone's hand as they climbed the steps together. He could no longer recall whose hand it had been, only the warmth and the rhythm of walking side by side. The memory did not ache. It rested quietly, like the stones themselves. A breeze moved through the courtyard, barely strong enough to stir the leaves. The wind chime near the hall responded with a single, low note, then returned to silence. Haruto closed his eyes. Behind his eyelids, the sound of rain became wider, deeper. It was no longer just the rain falling now, but all rain that had ever fallen here on these steps, on this roof, on these trees. The past did not intrude. It simply existed, layered gently beneath the present. Minutes passed, or perhaps longer. Time in the temple grounds did not insist on being counted. When Haruto opened his eyes again, the light had shifted slightly. The sky remained overcast, but its gray had softened, spreading evenly without sharp edges. The rain continued. Somewhere beyond the trees, the town of Aoyama remained quiet, its houses listening, its roads dark and reflective. People moved slowly behind walls and screens, their lives unfolding without haste. Haruto stood. He did not feel finished, but he did not feel unfinished either. The bench, the tree, the rain, they would remain. There was no need to hold on to the moment. As he began his walk back down the steps, his hand brushed lightly against the stone railing. It was cool, solid, familiar. The steps accepted his descent without comment. And the rain followed him, softly, patiently, as though it had nowhere else it needed to be. Chapter 3 Afternoon drifting like mist. The afternoon settled over Aoyama without ceremony. Clouds remained low, their color neither dark nor bright, spreading evenly across the sky. The rain softened again, thinning into a fine veil that barely disturbed the air as it fell. It was the kind of rain that seemed to hover as much as descend. Haruto walked back into town along the narrow path. The earth beneath his feet had grown darker, holding the rain close. Each step pressed gently into the ground, leaving impressions that filled almost immediately with water, then disappeared. The path remembered him only briefly. At the edge of the road, a small shop stood open. Its sliding door was pushed aside just enough to invite the outside in. Inside, shelves held everyday objects: paper, brushes, folded cloth, cups glazed in quiet colors. None of them was arranged to attract attention. They waited. Haruto stepped inside. A bell attached to the door frame gave a soft sound, then fell silent. The shop was warm, carrying the scent of wood and ink. Light filtered in through the front opening, diffused by the rain and the cloudy sky. Behind the counter stood an elderly woman. Her hair was tied back neatly, her movements precise but unhurried. She looked up as Haruto entered, offering a small nod rather than a greeting that needed words. Haruto returned the nod. He did not come here with a list. He never did. Instead, he allowed his eyes to move slowly along the shelves, pausing where they wished. A stack of paper caught his attention, not new, not old, its surface slightly textured. He picked up one sheet. It was cool to the touch, heavier than it looked. He imagined ink resting on it, drying slowly, becoming part of the page rather than sitting on top. He placed the sheet back and moved on. Outside, the rain traced thin lines down the shop's wooden frame. A bicycle passed by on the road, its tires whispering against wet pavement. The sound faded almost as soon as it arrived. Haruto selected a small bundle of incense. The woman wrapped it carefully in paper, her fingers steady. She placed it on the counter, and Haruto set down the exact change without counting. They shared a moment of stillness, one that did not require acknowledgement. When he stepped back outside, the air felt cooler. The afternoon had deepened. The rain, though light, seemed more present now, as if it had spread itself across everything rather than falling in one direction. Haruto walked without a destination. He passed houses where laundry hung beneath eaves, protected from the rain but close enough to feel its presence. Curtains moved slightly behind the windows. Somewhere, a kettle was set on a stove, beginning to warm. The town breathed. At a small bridge crossing the river, Haruto stopped. The river flowed steadily, its surface broken by countless small circles where the rain met water. Each circle expanded, touched another, then dissolved. Reflections of trees and sky fractured and reformed endlessly. Haruto rested his hands on the railing. He watched without searching for meaning. The water moved because it always had. The rain fell because it was raining. A leaf floated past, turning slowly, then disappearing beneath the bridge. The afternoon continued to drift. By the time Haruto turned back toward home, the light had softened further, easing into something closer to evening. The rain showed no sign of stopping, nor did it feel as though it should. In Aoyama, the hours did not rush toward night. They walked there. Chapter 4 Evening settles on wet roofs. Evening arrived without a clear boundary. The sky dimmed gradually, its light thinning as ink diluted with water. The rain deepened in sound, no longer light enough to disappear into the air, yet never heavy enough to insist upon itself. It fell steadily, confidently, as though it had settled into its place for the night. In Aoyama, lights began to appear. They did not turn on all at once. One window glowed softly, then another, each illumination small and contained. Reflections stretched across wet pavement, trembling slightly with every drop of rain. Haruto returned to his house as the evening unfolded. He removed his shoes at the door and stepped inside, the warmth of the wooden floor rising to meet his feet. The house felt unchanged, as though it had been holding its breath and was now exhaling. He set the bundle of incense on a low shelf near the alcove. The kettle was reheated, its quiet sound filling the room. When the water was ready, Haruto poured it over the tea leaves and waited. Steam lifted, carrying a scent that softened the air. Outside, the rain continued its steady rhythm. Haruto sat at the low table, hands wrapped around the cup. He did not drink immediately. He watched the surface of the tea, its faint ripples settling into stillness. When he finally took a sip, the warmth spread slowly. Across the room, a small radio rested on a shelf. Haruto turned it on briefly, just enough to hear a voice low, calm, offering a weather report that required no action. He turned it off again. The evening needed no accompaniment. As darkness deepened, the rain reflected the town's lights, multiplying them. Roof tiles glistened. Gutters guided water along familiar paths. Everything seemed to know what to do. Haruto moved through the house with quiet purpose. He lit a stick of incense and placed it carefully in its holder. A thin line of smoke rose, curling gently, then dissolving into the air. The scent was subtle, barely present. He opened a window just enough to let in the sound of rain. The night air was cool and clean. The rain carried the scent of earth and stone, of leaves and wood. It slipped into the room, blending with the incense smoke. Haruto sat again, listening. He thought of the temple steps, dark now under the night rain. He imagined water flowing down their surfaces, filling small hollows, then moving on. The steps did not mind the rain. They welcomed it. In the town, others were settling into their evenings. Meals were prepared and eaten slowly. Conversations faded into silence. Lamps were dimmed. Somewhere, a door slid closed with care. Time loosened further. The rain continued, steady and unchanging, as if it had decided to remain through the night. Haruto finished his tea and set the cup aside. He felt no need to mark the end of the day. The evening would pass on its own, turning quietly into night. Outside, the rain fell on old stone steps, on wooden roofs, on waiting earth. And the town of Aoyama rested beneath it all. Chapter 5 Night holds the rain gently. Night did not arrive suddenly. It seeped into Aoyama the way rain seeped into stone slowly, patiently, without resistance. The last traces of color drained from the sky, leaving behind a deep, even darkness softened by cloud and rain. The town grew quieter. Not silent, but quieter in the way a room becomes quiet when everyone has settled into sleep. Sounds remained, but they no longer competed with one another. The rain was the most present, its rhythm steady and unbroken. In Haruto's house, the lights were dim. He lay on a futon near the open window, the edge of the curtain stirring slightly with each faint movement of air. The scent of incense had faded into the wood and fabric, leaving only a suggestion behind. Haruto listened. Rain struck the roof in countless small touches, each one brief, each one complete. Water flowed through the gutters, guided downward, away. Somewhere in the distance, the river continued its slow movement, carrying reflections of darkness and sky. His breathing matched the night. Thoughts appeared, then drifted away before forming shapes. There was nothing to hold on to, and nothing that needed holding. The day had passed. The night was present. Across town, the temple stood quietly. The stone steps glistened beneath the rain, their surfaces reflecting fragments of lantern light from below. Water moved down them in thin, silver lines, tracing paths worn smooth by centuries of use. The steps remembered everything and nothing. Rain pooled briefly in shallow depressions, then overflowed, continuing downward. Each drop completed its journey without hesitation. The trees surrounding the temple swayed almost imperceptibly. Leaves released water one drop at a time, their movements slow enough to be unnoticed unless watched carefully. A fox crossed the path near the gate, its fur darkened by rain. It paused, ears turning, then continued on, leaving no trace behind. Night held all of it gently. In the houses scattered through Aoyama, people slept. Some dreamed of places they had never been. Others dreamed of places they had forgotten. The rain passed over their roofs, indifferent and kind. Time thinned. Minutes lost their edges. Hours softened, blending. The night did not demand awareness. It allowed rest. In his sleep, Haruto dreamed without images. There was only the sensation of moving water, of being carried without effort. The rain did not fall in the dream. It simply existed, everywhere at once. Outside, the rain continued. On old stone steps. On quiet roofs. On waiting for earth. And the night, deep and unbroken, held it all until morning. Chapter 6 Before Morning Remembers Light. The rain did not stop during the night. It remained steady, untroubled by darkness or sleep, falling with the same patience it had shown all day. By the time the sky began to lighten almost imperceptibly, the world was already saturated with its presence. Morning approached quietly. It did not wake the town so much as gently touch it, as though checking whether it was ready to open its eyes. The darkness thinned, becoming a soft gray that settled over rooftops and trees. Haruto stirred. Not fully awake, not fully asleep, he lay listening as the quality of the rain shifted once more. It was still falling, but now it carried a faint openness, a sense of space returning to the air. He opened his eyes. The room was dim but visible. The shapes of furniture emerged slowly, familiar and calm. The curtain near the window moved slightly, breathing with the outside air. Haruto sat up. He moved without urgency, folding the futon neatly, placing it aside. Each motion felt unremarkable, and that was enough. The floor beneath his feet was cool, grounded. He opened the window a little wider. The sound of rain entered more fully now, joined by the faint call of a distant bird testing the morning. The call was brief and uncertain, then gone. Outside, the town of Aoyama remained quiet. Roads were empty. Puddles reflected the pale sky, their surfaces trembling gently. Water gathered at the edges of roofs, releasing itself in steady drops. Haruto prepared tea again. The kettle warmed slowly, its sound blending with the rain. Steam rose, touching the air, then vanishing. He poured, waited, lifted the cup. The first sip was warm, grounding. He stood by the window as he drank, watching the morning form itself piece by piece. There was no dramatic change, no moment where night clearly ended. The world simply continued. After finishing his tea, Haruto reached for his coat. The fabric was still slightly damp from the day before, holding a memory of rain. He did not mind. He slipped it on and stepped outside once more. The air felt fresh, rinsed clean. Haruto turned toward the temple path. The rain followed him. The gravel path was darker now, the stones pressed firmly into the earth. Plants along the edge stood taller, leaves washed and bright despite the muted light. When Haruto reached the stone steps, he paused again. They looked different in the morning. Still wet, still darkened, but touched now by a soft, even light. Water flowed down them in familiar patterns, catching brightness where it could. Haruto placed his foot on the first step. The stone was cool, solid, unchanged. As he climbed, the rain continued to fall, softly, endlessly, not marking the passage of time, but accompanying it. And morning, gentle and uninsistent, settled fully over Aoyama. Chapter 7 The Temple Listens to Morning. Morning settled more fully as Haruto reached the upper steps. The rain had thinned again, becoming almost transparent, its presence felt more than seen. It moved through the air like a memory, touching stone and wood with familiar ease. The temple gate stood open. Not wide, just enough to suggest that it had never been fully closed. Water traced the lines of its roof, dripping into the gravel below with soft, irregular sounds. Haruto passed beneath it. Inside the grounds, the morning felt deeper, quieter. The trees held the light differently here, their leaves catching faint brightness and releasing it slowly. The courtyard stones were slick but steady, their surfaces smoothed by years of weather and care. A monk swept the path near the main hall. His movements were slow and deliberate, the broom whispering against wet stone. He did not hurry to clear the rain, he simply moved it aside, guiding water and fallen leaves together. Haruto stopped at a respectful distance. The monk looked up briefly and nodded. There was no need for words. Both returned to their quiet attention, the monk to his sweeping, Haruto to the space itself. The rain continued to fall. It gathered briefly at the edges of the roof, then let go. Each drop completed a small cycle, touching sky, wood, stone, earth. Haruto walked toward the steps that led to the inner garden. These steps were smaller, narrower, and partially hidden by moss. They descended gently into a space where stones were arranged around a shallow pool. Rain fell into the water, creating soft, overlapping rings that expanded and faded. Haruto sat on a low stone near the edge. He rested his hands loosely in his lap and watched the surface of the pool. The rain erased reflections as soon as they formed, keeping the water in constant motion without disturbance. His breathing slowed. Morning thoughts sometimes tried to gather plans, fragments of memory, the outline of the day, but here, they dissolved before settling. The temple did not hold on to such things. It allowed them to pass. A sparrow landed briefly at the edge of the pool. It dipped its head, drank, then shook its feathers, scattering tiny droplets into the air. A moment later, it was gone. Haruto remained. The rain softened further, thinning into a quiet presence that seemed to surround rather than fall. Light grew incrementally brighter, though the clouds remained. Time moved, but gently. Eventually, the monk finished sweeping. The path lay clean, though still wet, as if it had always been that way. He set the broom aside and disappeared into the hall. Haruto stood. He felt neither reluctance nor urgency. The morning had been received. There was nothing more required of it. As he turned back toward the outer steps, his hand brushed against the stone wall beside the path. It was cool, damp, solid, unchanged by his touch. The rain continued to fall on the old stone steps. And the temple, patient and quiet, listened. Chapter 8. The town opens its eyes slowly. By the time Haruto descended the steps, the town had begun to stir. Not with noise or motion that demanded attention, but with small, careful signs of waking. A door slid open partway. A window was lifted just enough to let in air. Somewhere, a radio murmured, its voice low and distant. The rain remained. It fell steadily, no longer thinning, no longer deepening content to continue as it was. The road at the base of the steps shone darkly, reflecting the pale morning sky and the shapes of power lines above. Haruto stepped onto the road. His shoes made a soft sound against the wet surface, a sound that disappeared almost immediately. He turned toward the center of town, letting his pace settle into its usual rhythm. A woman swept the front of her shop. She did not attempt to push the water away entirely. Instead, she guided leaves and dust toward the gutter, her broom moving in wide, unhurried arcs. When she noticed Haruto passing, she inclined her head slightly. He returned the gesture, and both continued without pause. At a small intersection, a delivery truck stood idling. The driver leaned against the open door, sipping from a can, watching the rain as if it were part of the schedule. Boxes were unloaded slowly, each one carried carefully beneath the shelter of an awning. Haruto walked on. The river was fuller now, its surface darker, moving with a quiet confidence. Rain met water and vanished, leaving only brief circles behind. He stopped again at the bridge. The same railing, the same view, yet the morning had altered it subtly. Light pressed gently against the clouds from above, brightening the water's surface in places. Reflections shifted more clearly now, though they still broke and reformed with each drop of rain. Haruto rested his hands on the railing and breathed. He felt no need to remain long. The river would continue whether he watched or not. The rain would fall whether it was noticed. When he turned back toward home, the town felt awake enough. Shops opened their doors wider. Footsteps appeared, then blended into the background. Voices exchanged brief greetings, softened by rain and distance. Aoyama did not hurry into its day. It allowed the morning to arrive fully before moving with it. Haruto reached his house and stepped inside. The familiar warmth greeted him. He removed his coat and hung it near the door, droplets falling silently to the floor. Outside, the rain continued its patient work. Inside, the day waited. And in the town, beneath the steady rain, life moved forward at the pace it had always chosen. Chapter 9 Hours that do not ask to be named. Late morning passed into midday without announcement. The rain remained constant, its sound now woven so thoroughly into the town that it felt less like weather and more like atmosphere. It was no longer something that happened. It was simply there. Inside his house, Haruto moved through small, ordinary tasks. He wiped the low table with a cloth dampened by clean water, not because it was dirty, but because the motion felt right. He rearranged a few books on a shelf, aligning their edges loosely, without concern for order beyond what pleased the eye. The window remained open. Rain entered as sound and scent, never crossing the threshold as water. The boundary between inside and outside felt thin but clear, like a shared understanding. Haruto prepared a simple meal. Rice warmed quietly. Vegetables were cut with slow, careful motions. Nothing was rushed. Nothing needed correction. Steam rose, met cooler air, and vanished. He ate alone, seated near the window. Each bite was unremarkable, steady. The taste did not surprise him. It did not need to. Outside, footsteps passed now and then, softened by rain. A bicycle bell rang once in the distance, then did not repeat. After the meal, Haruto washed the dishes and placed them neatly to dry. Time stretched. The clock on the wall marked the hours, but it did so gently, its hands moving without sound. Haruto did not look at it. He felt no need to know exactly where he was within the day. He sat again, this time with a book resting unopened on his lap. He did not read. Instead, he watched the rain trace slow paths down the glass. Drops gathered, hesitated, then slid downward, merging with others, leaving faint trails behind. The paths never repeated themselves. The afternoon light remained muted. Clouds held steady, allowing no sharp shadows, no sudden brightness. The town existed within a single, continuous tone, softened by water and time. Somewhere nearby, a child laughed briefly. The sound was light, quick, and gone before it could echo. It did not interrupt the calm. It belonged to it. Haruto closed his eyes for a while. He did not sleep deeply. He drifted. Thoughts came and went like the rain present, then passing, leaving no mark that needed remembering. When he opened his eyes again, the light had shifted slightly. Not brighter, not darker, simply different. The day had moved forward without asking permission. Haruto stood and stretched. He felt rested, though he could not say from what. The rain continued outside, patient as ever. The hours passed, and none of them asked to be named. Chapter 10 Afternoon leaning toward quiet. The afternoon began to lean. Not toward anything specific, but away from its center, easing gently in the direction of later hours. The rain adjusted with it, becoming slightly deeper in sound, slightly slower in rhythm, as if it too were settling into a more reflective mood. Haruto stepped outside again. The air felt cooler now, carrying a hint of evening that had not yet arrived. The road was darker, its surface polished smooth by continuous rain. Reflections moved faintly beneath his feet, shifting with each step. He walked toward the edge of town. Here, houses grew farther apart. Gardens opened wider, their soil dark and rich, leaves heavy with water. Small streams had formed along the edges of paths, guiding rainwater patiently downhill. Haruto followed one such path. It curved gently, bordered by low grasses that bent under the weight of moisture. Drops slid from blade to blade, never falling straight, always choosing a small journey first. The fields beyond lay quiet. Rows of earth rested between plantings, their surfaces smoothed by rain. Water gathered in shallow pools, reflecting the gray sky in broken pieces. There was no work being done here now. The land was content to wait. Haruto stopped near a small wooden shelter. It stood alone, its roof angled just enough to guide rain away. Beneath it, the ground was dry, untouched. He stepped inside and stood for a while, listening. From here, the sound of rain spread outward. On wood, on leaves, on distant roofs, on open earth. Each sound is distinct, yet woven together. Haruto placed his hand against one of the shelter's posts. The wood was cool and slightly rough, its grain raised by moisture. It felt real, present, unconcerned with time. A memory surfaced. Not sharply, not fully formed, just the sense of having stood like this before, long ago, listening to rain in another place, another season. The details did not matter. The feeling remained, then gently receded. The afternoon continued its slow turn. When Haruto left the shelter and walked back toward town, the light had softened further. The rain remained steady, its persistence reassuring rather than heavy. Smoke rose from a chimney nearby, thin and pale against the gray sky. Somewhere, a meal was being prepared again. The day was folding itself toward evening. Haruto reached the road and turned toward home. He felt no urgency to arrive. The rain walked with him. And the afternoon, leaning quietly toward rest, followed close behind. Chapter 11 Evening returns without repetition. Evening returned to Aoyama as it always did, and yet it did not repeat itself. The light thinned once more, easing out of the afternoon and settling into a deeper gray. The rain did not change its pace. It never needed to. It simply continued, as though it were the thread holding the hours together. Haruto arrived home as the first lamps were lit again. Their glow was softer than the night before, not brighter or dimmer, only shaped by a different moment. Reflections appeared on the road, stretching and trembling gently, each one unique despite its familiarity. Inside, the house welcomed him without comment. He set his things down, washed his hands, and moved through the space with the ease of repetition that never grows dull. Outside, rain touched the roof and slid away. Inside, warmth gathered quietly. Haruto prepared a simple supper. Nothing elaborate, nothing new. The sound of simmering blended with the rain, neither dominating the other. Steam rose and faded, just as it always did. He ate slowly. Between bites, he listened. Somewhere nearby, a door closed. Somewhere farther away, a train passed, its sound softened by distance and weather. The rain absorbed everything, smoothing sharp edges into something round and gentle. When the meal was finished, Haruto did not rush to clear the table. He sat for a while longer, hands resting lightly, gaze unfocused. The day did not ask to be reviewed. It had already passed, complete in itself. He lit another stick of incense. The smoke rose in a thin line, then curved, then vanished. Its scent blended with the damp air drifting in through the open window. Outside, the town settled again. Shops closed. Footsteps grew fewer. Conversations shortened, then disappeared. Aoyama did not resist the quiet. It welcomed it. Haruto stood and dimmed the light. The room softened instantly, shadows deepening but never becoming sharp. The rain outside seemed closer now, as though it had stepped just beneath the eaves to listen. He lay down once more. The futon held his weight gently, familiarly. He did not adjust much. He did not need to. As sleep approached, his awareness loosened. There was no clear line between waking and rest, only the steady presence of rain, the memory of stone steps, the sense of time moving without effort. Outside, the rain continued to fall on old stone steps. Inside, Haruto drifted. And evening, having returned without repetition, slowly became night again. Chapter 12. Night deepens, still unbroken. Night deepened gently, as if lowering itself layer by layer over Aoyama. The rain persisted, unchanged in its patience. It fell into darkness without needing to be seen, its sound enough to define its presence. Roofs accepted it. Roads reflected what little light remained. The town settled into a quieter version of itself. Haruto slept. His breathing was slow and even, rising and falling in time with nothing in particular. The room held him softly, shadows resting in their places. The rain entered through the open window as sound alone, filling the space without crossing into it. Outside, the town was awake only in fragments. A light burned in an upstairs window where someone had not yet found sleep. A cat moved along a fence, placing its paws carefully, stopping once to listen before continuing. Water ran steadily through gutters, guided by paths long established. At the temple, the grounds lay open to the night. The stone steps glistened faintly, catching stray reflections from the town below. Water traced their surfaces, filling and emptying shallow hollows without pause. The steps did not resist the rain. They never had. The main hall stood dark, its doors closed, its presence solid and calm. The wind chime near the eaves stirred once, then settled again, offering a single note that dissolved into the rain. Time thinned further. Minutes lost distinction. Hours folded quietly into one another. The night did not press forward. It rested where it was. In his sleep, Haruto turned slightly. A dream passed through him not as images, but as sensation. The feeling of standing still while something vast and gentle moved around him. The feeling of being held in place without being restrained. The rain was part of it. Beyond the town, the mountains remained unseen, their outlines softened by cloud and darkness. Rain fell there too, feeding streams that would find their way down to the river by morning. Everything was connected, though nothing insisted on being noticed. As the night moved deeper, the rain did not lessen. It continued to fall on old stone steps, on quiet roofs, on sleeping fields, on waiting earth. And Aoyama, wrapped in sound and shadow, remained at rest still, unbroken, and unhurried. Chapter 13 The hour before dreams let go. Somewhere in the deepest part of the night, there came an hour that did not belong clearly to sleep or to waking. It was not marked by clocks. It was not announced by sound. It existed quietly, like a pause held gently between breaths. The rain continued through it. Its rhythm had become so familiar that it no longer felt repetitive. Each drop arrived as if for the first time, touching roof, stone, leaf, then moving on. The sound was neither louder nor softer, only complete. Haruto drifted near the surface of sleep. His thoughts were slow, unformed, more like currents than ideas. He was aware of warmth, of the weight of the futon, of the faint movement of air near the window. He was not aware of himself as a person with a name or a past. Only as a presence. Outside, the town remained nearly motionless. The lights were few now. Most windows were dark, their reflections lost to the rain. Roads lay empty, shining faintly where distant lamps reached them. At the temple, the stone steps listened. Water continued to move down their surfaces, guided by grooves carved not by hands, but by time. Each hollow filled, overflowed, and emptied again. The steps did not mark how many times this had happened. They did not need to. The trees nearby released water one drop at a time. Leaves bent, straightened, bent again. The ground beneath them darkened further, rich and still. Moss drank quietly, deepening in color. A faint breeze passed through, barely enough to stir anything. The rain adjusted around it, then returned to its steady fall. In Haruto's sleep, the dream shifted. There was the sensation of standing at the base of the stone steps, not as a memory, not as a scene, but as a feeling. The sense of looking upward without expectation. The sense that climbing or not climbing would make no difference. The dream did not ask him to move. It simply allowed him to be there. His breathing slowed further. The hour held. And then, just as quietly as it had arrived, it began to loosen its grip. The boundary between dream and rest softened, thinned, and prepared to release. Outside, the rain did not change. It continued to fall on old stone steps, on quiet wood, on earth that waited without impatience. And the night, having deepened as far as it needed to, began its gentle, unseen turn toward morning. Chapter 14 The first hint of morning air. The first hint of morning did not come as light. It came as a change in the air. The rain still fell, steady and familiar, but the space around it felt wider, as though the night had taken a small step back. The darkness remained, yet it no longer pressed inward. It rested. Haruto breathed and shifted. He did not wake all at once. Awareness returned in soft layers, the sense of the room, the sound of rain, the quiet weight of the hours behind him. His eyes remained closed, but the night was already loosening. Outside, the town held still. The roads were empty, their surfaces slick and reflective. Puddles lay undisturbed, mirrors waiting for something to return. Water moved patiently through gutters, guided by paths learned long ago. At the temple, the stone steps were unchanged. They were wet, darkened, and smooth, holding the rain as they always had. The steps did not mark the passing of night or the approach of day. They simply remained, offering their steady presence to whatever came. A single bird called from somewhere unseen. The sound was brief, almost uncertain, as if testing the quiet rather than breaking it. The rain absorbed the call, softened it, let it fade. Haruto opened his eyes. The room was dim, but the shapes were clearer now. The curtain at the window moved slightly, breathing in and out with the air. The scent of rain felt fresh again, rinsed clean by time. He sat up. His movements were slow, unforced. He folded the futon, placed it aside, and stood. The floor beneath his feet felt cool and real. He opened the window a little wider. The sound of rain entered more fully, joined now by the faintest suggestion of morning beyond the clouds. The sky remained gray, but its tone had shifted, lightened almost imperceptibly. Haruto prepared tea once more. The kettle warmed. Steam rose. The day did not hurry him. He stood by the window as he drank, watching the town prepare to wake, not yet moving, not yet lit, but ready. Outside, the rain continued its gentle fall, and morning, carried quietly on softened air, began to take its place. Chapter 15. Morning walks the same path. Morning walked the same path it always did. It did not rush ahead of the rain, nor did it wait for the clouds to part. It moved alongside them, step by step, settling into Aoyama with a calm familiarity. The sky remained overcast, but the gray had thinned. Light spread evenly, touching rooftops, trees, and roads without casting shadows that demanded attention. The rain continued, steady and untroubled. Haruto stepped outside again. The air felt cool and newly arranged, as though the night had quietly set everything back in place. His coat was still damp at the shoulders, holding the memory of yesterday's rain. He slipped it on without hesitation. The road greeted him with its dark sheen. Puddles reflected pale sky and passing wires, their surfaces trembling softly as rain met water. Haruto walked carefully, though not cautiously, his pace unchanged. He followed the familiar route toward the temple. Along the way, the town began to open its eyes once more. A shop door slid open halfway. A curtain was drawn aside. Somewhere, a kettle began to heat, its sound barely audible through walls and rain. Haruto passed a small garden. The plants there stood refreshed, leaves clean and heavy with water. Drops slid from their edges, falling into soil that accepted them without resistance. The garden did not appear tended or neglected. It simply existed, responding to the rain in its own time. As Haruto reached the base of the stone steps, he paused. The steps looked much as they had the day before and the day before that. Wet, dark, uneven, patient. Water traced their surfaces in narrow lines, following paths that had been learned through countless rains. Haruto placed his foot on the first step. The stone felt cool and steady beneath him. Each step accepted his weight without sound. As he climbed, the rain brushed his coat and hair lightly, leaving no sense of intrusion. Halfway up, he stopped. From here, the town spread out below him, softened by rain and distance. Roofs blended into one another. Roads curved gently out of sight. Smoke rose thinly from a chimney, dissolving into the low clouds. Haruto breathed. There was no reason to continue upward just yet. There was no reason to turn back. The pause itself was enough. The rain continued to fall on the steps around him. And morning, unremarkable and complete, walked on beside it. Chapter 16. The pause that belongs to no one. Haruto remained on the steps for a while longer. Not because he was waiting for something to happen, and not because he wished to hold the moment in place. He stayed because the pause felt complete, as though it had been set there intentionally, belonging neither to ascent nor descent. The rain brushed past him, light but persistent. Drops touched the stone near his feet and slipped downward, passing without acknowledgement. The steps did not respond. They accepted everything equally: rain, footsteps, stillness. From where he stood, the sounds of the town reached him in softened layers. A door closing. A voice calling briefly, then quiet again. The distant hum of a vehicle moving slowly through wet streets. Each sound arrived gently, then dissolved into the rain. Haruto continued upward. At the top of the steps, the temple gate waited as it always had. The wood was darkened by moisture, its surface smooth in places where countless hands had rested. Water gathered at the edge of the roof and released itself in steady drops, marking time without counting it. Haruto passed beneath the gate. The temple grounds felt unchanged, yet subtly renewed, washed clean not only by rain, but by the passing of night into morning. Stones glistened. Moss deepened in color. The air carried a faint clarity, as though something unseen had settled. He walked slowly toward the inner garden. The pool there reflected the pale sky, its surface in constant motion as rain met water. Circles formed and vanished, overlapping without interruption. The garden did not seek stillness. It existed within the movement. Haruto sat on the same low stone as before. He placed his hands on his knees and let his shoulders relax. The rain fell evenly around him, enclosing the space without isolating it. There was no sense of arrival, and no sense of departure. A memory surfaced briefly. Not an image, not a story, only the feeling of sitting beside someone else long ago, sharing a silence much like this one. The presence of that person was indistinct, but the quiet remained clear. The memory passed. Haruto did not follow it. A monk crossed the far edge of the garden, moving unhurriedly, carrying a bucket that caught rain as it moved. The monk did not look toward Haruto, and Haruto did not turn to watch. Their paths did not need to meet. Time eased forward. The rain neither lessened nor intensified. It maintained its steady presence, as though it had chosen this rhythm and would not be persuaded otherwise. Eventually, Haruto stood. He did not feel finished, but he felt complete. The difference mattered. As he turned back toward the outer steps, the sound of rain followed him, unchanged. The temple listened, as it always did, without storing or releasing anything in return. Haruto descended. Each step led him. Each step let him go. And the rain continued to fall on old stone steps, not marking moments, not signaling change, but accompanying the world as it moved, quietly and without hurry. Chapter 17. The day settles into itself. By the time Haruto reached the bottom of the steps, the morning had fully arrived. Not in brightness, not in warmth, but in presence. The town was awake now, though it moved carefully, as if mindful of the rain that had accompanied it for so long. Haruto stepped onto the road. The surface glistened beneath his feet, smooth and dark. Water traced thin paths along its edges, collecting briefly before continuing. The rain had shaped the town into a quieter version of itself, rounding corners, softening distance. He walked toward the market street. Shops were open now, their doors slid back just enough to welcome the day without exposing themselves to it entirely. Inside, shelves were arranged, counters wiped, hands moving through familiar routines. A greengrocer arranged vegetables beneath a canvas awning. The colors were muted by cloud and rain, but they felt deeper for it. Greens darkened, reds softened, whites clean and calm. Water dripped from the awning's edge in steady intervals. Haruto stopped briefly. He selected a few items without discussion. The greengrocer placed them into a paper bag, folding the top with practiced care. No words were exchanged beyond a quiet acknowledgement. Both understood the rhythm of the morning well enough. As Haruto continued, the town filled in around him. Footsteps appeared and blended. Voices rose briefly, then faded. The rain remained the most constant presence, stitching each moment together. At a small intersection, a child stood beside an adult, both holding umbrellas that tilted slightly into the rain. The child stepped carefully, testing a puddle with one shoe before retreating again. The adult waited without comment. Haruto passed them, and the moment stayed behind, complete on its own. He returned home not long after. Inside, the house accepted the day as it came. Light filtered in evenly through the window. The sound of rain entered as background, no longer noticed, yet always there. Haruto set the groceries down and washed his hands. The water ran briefly, clear and cool, then stopped. He prepared tea once more, though it felt less like repetition now and more like continuation. He sat by the window. Outside, the rain showed no intention of stopping. It did not need to. The day did not require a change to move forward. Haruto watched as a drop traced its way down the glass, hesitated, then joined another. Together they slid downward, leaving a faint line behind that faded almost immediately. The day settled. And with it, the rain remained falling softly on old stone steps, on quiet streets, on a town that moved forward without hurry, one gentle moment at a time. Final chapter: soft rain falling on old stone steps. The rain did not end. And because it did not end, the story did not need to reach for anything new. Afternoon eased once more toward evening, and evening followed the familiar curve toward night. Light thinned, gathered briefly in windows and on wet roads, then loosened its hold. The town of Aoyama accepted this without pause, without reflection. Haruto remained within the rhythm of the day. He moved, rested, ate, listened. Each action was small and complete. No moment stood apart from the others, and no moment needed to be held longer than it stayed. When night returned, it did so gently. Rain touched the roof. Water followed the paths it had learned. The house held warmth. The window remained slightly open, allowing sound and air to pass freely between inside and out. Haruto lay down. Sleep came without effort. Beyond the town, the temple stood quietly, as it always had. The stone steps shone faintly beneath the rain, their surfaces smooth and dark, their edges softened by centuries of weather and waiting. Water flowed down them in thin lines. Each drop arrived. Each drop moved on. The steps did not remember individuals. They did not forget them either. They held only the shape of time itself, worn, steady, unchanged by the number of feet that passed or the number of rains that fell. Night deepened. Morning waited somewhere beyond it, already present in potential, already certain to arrive. The rain would likely still be there when it did, falling as it always had. On roofs, on leaves, on quiet roads, on old stone steps. And in that steady falling, nothing needed to conclude. Because the rain did not mark endings. It only accompanied what continued. The town slept. The temple listened. The steps remained. And the soft rain kept falling, patient, unremarkable, and endlessly enough.